Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Most of y'all must have noticed that the new AMD processors on the market run quite hot, and therefore you must be confused as to which cooler you should use. But don't worry, I have got you covered. I have handpicked a few coolers from different brands to test. Unfortunately, we couldn't get our hands on a Corsair model, and Cooler Master just kept on dodging all our requests even after making multiple calls to the marketing team. Since we were quite pressed on time, we eventually had to go ahead with the ones that we had. However, you can expect the Cooler Master coolers to perform like other Asetek cooler designs on the market. So now, let's move on with the video. First, let's understand the testing methodology. The entire experiment was performed under a constant ambient temperature of 30 degrees Celsius. Next, the application method, quantity of thermal paste and the type of thermal paste were kept constant throughout the procedure. Now we know that the AMD processors have a temperature target of 95 degrees Celsius, which means it will maintain the highest possible frequency at that temperature under load. So in theory, higher the cooling capacity, higher will be the frequency of the processor. So for benchmarking, we use Cinebench R23 on a 10-minute loop from which we took our readings. To get a better understanding and more diverse results, I have used the following 4 coolers. MSI's MEG Core Liquid S360 and Gigabyte's Waterforce X360 AIO, which have the fancy LED screen and are supposed to be best in performance. Then we have the Asus non-LED screen LC2360 ARGB AIO, and finally I tossed in Deepcool's AK620 air cooler. We will first go through 7950X's performance. After running the 10-minute loop on Cinebench R23, we can see that Deepcool's air cooler maintained the lowest average clock, while Gigabyte maintained the highest. Asus and MSI performed nearly the same as Gigabyte. The temperatures, as mentioned before, averaged out at 95 degrees for all the coolers, which is not surprising to see at all. Now, one thing to note is that the scores after the 10-minute loop were similar for all except Deepcool. The air cooler was just shy of 1000 points and the next highest scoring cooler, but that was quite obvious as it maintained a lower average clock. Let's move on to the 7600X results. Deepcool's air cooler maintained a lower average clock speed than the other coolers, which displayed an identical speed throughout the test. The temperatures were also on the similar lines as compared to the 7950X, where the LD screen coolers from MSI and Gigabyte showcased alike temperatures, followed by Asus with a moderately high temperature, and lastly we had Deepcool with the highest, though not much farther away from the rest. Naturally, all of them were under 95 degrees. Here we can see that the scores after the 10-minute loop were almost similar for all the coolers, which tells us that the temperature only mattered once it reached 95 degrees Celsius, because the processor would ultimately dial the clock speed down a bit to maintain the temperature target, thereby hindering the performance. However, if the temperature is under 95 degrees, which was the case for the 7600X, it didn't really matter as the performance numbers speak for the same. So now which cooler should you buy? For this, let's glance to the price to performance charts. For both the processors, despite its lower performance, Deepcool maintains the highest price to performance ratio, which is 3 times that of the other coolers. Well, it becomes the most obvious choice then, right? That's only if you're on a tight budget, or else Asus seems like the most economical and efficient choice, as you get the ARGB bling and the maximum performance out of the CPU. However, if you're like Pablo and you like to burn your money, you can spend more and get the more fancy coolers, as they have both the performance as well as the extra wow factor. But for the 7600X, I personally feel that Deepcool's air cooler is best suited in all terms. Though for the high-end chips, a good 360mm AIO makes sense, and it is the bare minimum that you will need to get the most out of them. And the additional cost of it is not much as compared to the cost of the overall build. That's it for the video. I hope this helps you to choose the cooling solution for your CPU. Thank you AMD for making this video possible. Like, subscribe, share, and I will catch you all in the next one.